Welcome back to Virtual School Assembly. Today our guest is Rob Ferre. Rob has been entertaining audiences for almost 3 decades as a game show host, MC, DJ, and speaker. Hailing from Salt Lake City, Utah, his business, Life of the Party, is a 5-time Best of State winner. He got his start as a game show host while working in Orlando, Florida for Disney, Universal, and Nickelodeon. He recently was the halftime game show host of the NBA's Utah Jazz, and now hosts his own virtual game show for audiences everywhere. Welcome, Rob Ferre.
Thank you so much, Tyler, for letting me be a part of this. This is so much fun that we're doing these virtual assemblies, and I saw what you were doing, and I thought, this is something I want to be a part of. And this is actually what I speak on, creating a movement, doing something different, being an innovator. And this is what we're doing, Tyler, and this is what you do. And the thing about it is if you're watching this right now, we are in the middle of, the COVID quarantine pandemic, and things are going down. Lots of things are going down. Also, we are right in the middle of the protests that are going on for Black Lives Matter. And these are movements, these are things that are happening in the world right now. And so my message to you is, how can you create change? How can you create influence within your culture, within your community? And people are doing that constantly. And I talk about how you can be the first one on the dance floor. And sometimes that's a very daunting task. I come from the world of entertainment. I also come from the world of DJs. All my DJ friends all over the world, all over the country, are now quarantined at home and they're streaming online. We're almost getting back to live events. I'll be doing a live event this weekend. But for the last 2 months, I've just been watching DJs streaming online. They don't know what to do. And when it first started, it was terrible. They were just going straight to Facebook, playing music out of their speakers. And now it has evolved into something brilliant and magical, because DJs love to evolve and love their technology and gear. And now they're doing streams with green screens. The music is awesome. They have lights. They have all these amazing things. When I started doing virtual events, I didn't have this room. I just had my office and I just had my webcam. But I've had to evolve and I've had to find ways to innovate. So when we talk about being the first one on the dance floor, that methodology that I use is called I.G.O. Initiate, guide, own. Now sometimes it might seem daunting to be that first one on the dance floor. I know it can be. And not all of us are innovators. I'm not really an innovator, but I try to do innovative things in my own circle of influence. When this all started out with the quarantine, we had to stop doing live events. And I saw all the DJs going online, but I wanted to do something different. And I wanted to create something unique for my community. And so what did I do? Is I went out and did social distancing dance parties. Yeah. So I went out and I went to communities and I did dance parties in my own community. And I did it as a free service. I just wanted to connect with my community. I later found out that other DJs were doing this around the country. And once I started sharing, I started seeing a movement. Yes, a movement, small, but a movement about how to create community connections through dance and music. And I was able to do that. And so I started seeing other DJs replicating the same thing and bringing music to their communities. So this is just one small example in my life, what I've done to initiate something different. But if you want to replicate that and make it even bigger, you must guide your people. You must guide people in what they can do to become something more, right? So I could do this for myself, but if I really want to create change, I can guide others, give them the resources, give them the instructions on how to do it. And I've been able to do that within my own DJ community. I've taught other DJs what I've done and what's been successful for me. And some of us love to help other people and keep helping them or micromanaging them and being meticulous about how it is done. devil in the details, right? But eventually you have to walk away and let people own that movement. Yeah. So I actually want to share with you a slide that kind of demonstrates this. It's a very interesting concept. Initiate, guide, own. And I've seen it all throughout history, right? So let's look at this right here. This is called the law of diffusion of innovation, okay? So if you look down at the bottom, at the first of the curve, it says innovators. Not all of us are innovators. Not all of us have the great booming ideas. But most of us can be those early adopters. And then at that early adoption, you have that tipping point. And then you have the early majority, and then it kind of goes down. This also is maybe the FOMO factor, right? A lot of the people who are in the late majority are the laggards. Those are your FOMO people, people who have a fear of missing out. But I want you to focus on the early adopters. Not all of us are innovators. Not all of us are the first ones stepping out onto that proverbial dance floor, which is a metaphor for what we can do, okay? But if you want to support a movement, be there early. Be that second or third person who is validating that person who's doing it all by themselves. So think about this. What are you doing in your community to create change? Maybe you're not the change maker. Maybe you're the person who supports the idea. Because we don't all come up with brilliant ideas, but we want to help others with those ideas. You know, we've seen this all throughout history. This guy right here, I don't know if you know who this is, but this is the man who started the Ice Bucket Challenge. This is Peter Frates. He was suffering from ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, which is a debilitating disease. And the Ice Bucket Challenge all started because of him. And it went viral. Everybody around the country were dumping buckets of water over the head. This was about 5 years ago. I don't know if you remember this. But it went viral, and people are just dumping water all over themselves. But it went towards a cause. And we all know what ALS is now. There's more knowledge, there's more money, there's more funding towards ALS. And this is what a movement can do. And kids all over the world have started their own movements. And I want to show you somebody who's done that themselves, who started all by themselves. It didn't have anybody. Greta Thunberg, a student, just like you, started a movement. This is 1 year before everybody came into the community to act on climate change. But this is how it started for her. Greta would do a Friday protest. She wouldn't go to school, and she sat outside the government buildings where she's from. I believe she's from Sweden. And she did her school strike climate. And it was just her. But then that second and third person started to join her. They even brought her lunch. But it was just her. And this is what happened a year later. A year later! This. Look at all these people. This is in New York City. But she did this all over the world. People gathered together for one cause, which is climate change. And then she became the person of the year, right? But it started with one person, with Greta, that first person on the dance floor. So what is that idea? What do you want to do with your own community, your own school, your own circle of influence? How do you want to create change? And I have to tell you, change takes courage. It's tough. I know, I get it. And I've done it myself. I've had to be vulnerable, and I had to get myself out there on the dance floor. And this right here is an example of me acting like a fool, acting like an idiot, and wanting to create change and do something fun and something different. So as a DJ, I went out and I was doing a dance party. Too bad we're not doing these right now. But this is me stepping out onto the dance floor without guidance, without instruction, and just looking for people to react and dance with me. But as you can see, there's two groups of youth sitting there watching this lone fool, this lone idiot, this lone adult trying to dance by himself, trying to get a groove starting, and even doing awkward dance moves just like that. Yeah. But as you can see, the kids on the right and the left, they weren't feeling it. But you have the kids over here, on this side. They're starting to feel the groove. They're starting to get into it, and I'm like, hey kids, you want to dance? She doesn't want to dance with me. But what I'm trying to do is create some momentum, get some people going. Now, they're not necessarily reacting to my dance moves, but they're reacting to the groove, to the dance music. And now if you play the right song, you can get people to follow, you can get people to react. So as you can see, we're starting to gain momentum here, and we're getting more and more people involved. And so I wanted to get these other kids involved on this side, right here. And they weren't involved. So I go behind them and start dancing awkwardly, clapping my hands. I don't know what this was to accomplish, but it didn't quite work. But you see the kid in the green right there? He's into it. And as soon as I approach him, like, hey, you feeling the groove? He's like, no, not so much. And he sits back down. Okay. So I got these kids. They're feeling the groove. I go ahead and take their request. But as I go behind the DJ booth, what happens next? I didn't expect to happen. They gather together and they go over and get the other kids to start dancing with them. It was that peer-to-peer relationship, and they got each other to dance and groove with each other. It wasn't me, it was those peers. Clap, 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 clap. But that's how we create change. So sometimes you have that lone fool, that lone adult dancing by himself, trying to get other people to dance. But then you get these other kids to be involved. But also what else works is taking people's requests, listening, and getting the pioneers involved. But as you can see here, I put on another groove, which was the electric slide. It was a request, but it also is a song of guidance. So I'm now guiding these kids on how to do the electric slide. Actually, I think it's this way, right? Okay, we got that. I'm trying to mirror it. But the thing is, now we're all doing the same dance. So songs of guidance like the cha-cha slide, the Cupid shuffle, these are things that get people involved to be part of something bigger, right? And look at this. My goal was to leave that dance floor and let everybody be a part of it, okay? Look at this. This is how we create change. Initiate, guide, own. These are the steps. And this is what I speak on, and this is how I hope you can start creating change in your own community. Remember, nothing happens until something moves. Albert Einstein. Be that change. Be that person in your community who will spark a movement. Thank you so much.
All right. Rob, can I ask you a few questions about your presentation?
Yeah, so is it all right if we go over to my office?
Sure. Let's hop over. Okay,
here we go. There we are. This way I can take it a little bit easier. And I forgot to address, I'm wearing my Gryffindor jacket. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and I thought it'd be appropriate for this presentation. So there you go.
Yeah. As I was listening to you and thinking about my own upbringing, and when I went to those awkward high school dances, and I was so nervous to get out on the dance floor, and how that kind of translates into life now. I think there's a lot of people like me who are introverts, who are nervous about being the first one out, and you kind of address that with the early adopters. But can you lead if you don't want to be the first one on the dance floor, if you don't want to be visible, if you don't want to take credit or have people see you? Can you still be a leader for change?
Yes. That's why you gather a community. Not all leaders are visible. There's a lot of people who are behind the scenes. It's very interesting. I always think about Apple. And they're always used in innovation and these type of examples. But you got Steve Jobs and Wozniak. Is it
Steve also? Yeah, Steve Wozniak.
Yeah, they're both Steves. You got the two Steves. Steve Wozniak. Sorry, I'm
Wozniak.
totally Wozniak. he's kind of the behind the scenes guy. He was like the developer. So you got Steve Jobs, the idea guy, Steve Wozniak, the kind of the developer, the coder. And you always you can work together as a team. You don't always have to be that person who is out there, right? You don't have to be the person on the microphone. Find somebody who complements you, but gather together as a team. Or you can be that person who finds that charismatic person and present your idea to them, and you guys can work together. And so it doesn't always have to be you out in front of everybody. But if you have an idea and you want to share it, get other people to support you. I think that's one of the best things you can do.
Right. Now, when we talk about change and we talk about taking the lead, whether that's you or if you're the Wozniak and you're going to Steve Jobs, if you're the behind the scenes guy, either way, I think there's some development that takes place there. And so I kind of want to pick on you for a minute because you've been an innovator all your life, but you've done some things that maybe are non-traditional or unconventional, just in your kind of development as a DJ and some of the programs that you've done as a DJ. Can you talk about how you got started in that business and why you wanted to do that?
Yeah, so when I do my full keynote, I talk about my origin story. We all have origin stories, just like superheroes. I'm not saying I'm a superhero, but it's always interesting to kind of find out what your roots are and where you came from. And you said, I've always been an innovator. I haven't, but I've had people who've sparked that innovation within me to do more, to be more. I went to Southern Utah University. I graduated in broadcast communications in 2003. And I wanted to find a job within TV, but I didn't find something. And so what did I do? I moved across the country and worked for the Mouse. Yeah, Mickey Mouse, that is. And when I went to go work at Walt Disney World, I performed in what was called the college program talent show, okay? And it was called the Night of Many Stars. And the college program was an awesome opportunity to go work at Walt Disney World. As a college graduate, I didn't quite know what was in store, and when I got there, I got placed in the parking lot. Yeah, I had a college degree and I was pointing cars left and right, like this. But I still wanted to share my talents. I still wanted to share my passion as an entertainer, so I went to this talent show. I performed. I won, getting my Mousker. But the guy who was there DJing the event, emceeing the event, his name was Elliot Hansen. And a couple of weeks later at a graduation event, he saw me gathering kids up, gathering other college program attendees, and dancing with them. And I started doing all these line dances, started getting people involved. And he approached me and he says, have you ever thought about being a DJ? And I said, well, I did it in college on radio. He's like, no, an interactive theme park DJ. And I was like, wow. And so he just kind of saw my natural instinct to lead people, to guide people, to get people involved. And he got me involved with that. So if anything from this story, I got lucky by being approached by Elliot. But what people need to start looking for is a mentor. Somebody in their life who can help them and guide them. Because I couldn't have done this all on my own. And so finding somebody who is willing to take you under their wing, guide you, and show you the ropes. And so that's what happened with Elliot and I. And I started working in theme parks. I also worked at the Nickelodeon Hotel. And then I came back to Utah. And people always ask, why'd you come back to Utah? I'm like, well, this is my home. This is where I grew up here in Utah. And I went to East High School, home of High School Musical, right, in Salt Lake City. But I started my business here 13 years ago, and I've always wanted to do something different, entertain, and that's kind of my path to where I am today. But I love speaking. I love being in front of audiences. And so that's basically what I am. I just love to be in front of audiences. Speaking is another vehicle for me to share my message, to share my groove, as you would say. And I always talk to people about that. Your message is your groove, the songs you sing, the songs you play. Share those messages with people. And that's the most powerful thing about being a DJ is being able to play the songs that get people to dance and react. We create movement through music and dance. And so that's just another metaphor for what I do. But that's kind of like the short of the long, even though it seemed fairly long, but that's kind of how I got to where I am today.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing that. Now, in that message, you talked a little bit about the importance of having a mentor.
Yeah.
And I want to tie that back to your earlier message of creating a community, especially when you want to initiate change.
Yeah.
I think a lot of kids are reluctant just because it's hard to make friends, it's hard to try new things. And so what would be your advice to kids when they have an idea or they want to initiate a change? How do they find that community in the first place? It's one thing to find one person, but how do they grow or become part of a community?
Right. It's hard, especially, at lower levels. We have what is called tribes. You've heard this term. Seth Godin talks about tribes, finding your tribe, and every level of education I've had, I've been able to find different tribes. For some, it's harder. Not as many people are as outgoing as I am, and I get it for some people that they don't know where to find their tribe, and so I tell people always keep looking, explore different hallways, different opportunities to find people like yourself. And it may take that opportunity for you to move away from home, to go to college, and to find people who are like-minded. And I think that's one of the most important things. But the thing about it today is we are more connected than ever. It's a worldwide network. We got different social media to be able to connect with our tribe. And I think it's always important to find like-minded individuals to help you, but also find individuals who will challenge you on your ideas so that you can actually prove your methodology to be true, right? But being able to mastermind, as we say, with other people to generate more ideas, I think that's one of the best things you can do. So I didn't give you a very specific way of doing it, but I knew when I was in high school, I joined different clubs and different organizations. I just wasn't focused on one thing. I loved going to sporting events. I was the super fan. I was involved in theater. I was involved with student government. I was involved in many different things that involved different groups of kids within this high school, cliques maybe as you call it. But I wanted to meet new, different kids and explore the possibilities. But I think if it just takes one person for you to be able to connect with and bounce ideas off of, that's an amazing thing that you can do. So just start searching and just start finding it. Put out those vibes. This is who I am.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to look at what's going on right now. And for those of you who are watching this far into the future, we're right now going on right now are the protests for Black Lives Matter. This is an opportunity for those people who feel that pain to gather together and peacefully protest, most of them peacefully. But they're able to get their message out in a way that helps create change. And we hope change will happen. And that's one of the best things you can do is finding like-minded individuals and starting to do something, because that's one of the hardest things. Also, right now, stepping out of the dance floor is leaving your home, right? Leaving your home and going out and doing something. And I think it's healthy to be able to find those other like-minded individuals.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the idea of getting outside of our comfort zone for just a second here, because right now that is difficult. In many cases, we can't leave our home. There are still a lot of states where you're stuck inside and have limited opportunities to reach out. However, these movements are still happening. We're still having this Black Lives Matter movement. We're still having things that
Yeah.
are sweeping not just our country, but the whole world. And there are opportunities to be involved. So thinking about those high school kids that are stuck home right now, what are some things that they can be doing to be involved, to be a part of a community, perhaps without ever even leaving their home physically?
What I think you can do right now is creating an online community, but finding something, finding a cause, finding something that you guys can do together. And what's been the most difficult thing for the 2020 students is the seniors, at least, they can't do it together. They had to do this graduation kind of separately, but and I've also done graduation events for sixth graders. You know, I saw my niece and nephew graduate seniors. One of my niece was the valedictorian, and she didn't get to, you know, have this opportunity in front of all her peers. You know, they were separate. But I think if you're able to find your own community and create something together, I think that can be very powerful. But the world is very different than it was for me 20 years ago when I was in high school.
Right.
And you have so much power within this virtual community. But I think the most important thing is looking at your why. Why are you doing this? Why is it important to you? If you can define your why, and this goes back to Simon Sinek, you know, defining your why as, why do you want to do this? Do you want to create change, or do you want to go and destroy stuff? You know, like that's what we're seeing right now with these protests. Is there are some people who are taking the opportunity to loot, and I'm not going to disregard those people's anger. But what is your why? Why are you wanting to get out into the community? Why do you want to do this? So I think finding like-minded individuals who have that. But here's the other thing is, even if it's just you saying something on Facebook, I know kids don't use Facebook, on TikTok.
Right.
But this is a way to express yourself. And I see it all the time, you know. We have these opportunities to express ourselves. And it might not be TikTok, it might be through artwork, it might be through poetry. I'm thinking of all the things that have to do with art, but art is in a form of expression. What is your art? What is the music that is inside you? And I forget who the person who said this, I don't know if it's credited to anybody, but don't die while there's still music in you, right? We've heard this all before. And then there's the Jim Rohn quote, you know, be the, oh dear.
Average of the 5 people.
Be the average of the 5 people that you will surround yourself with. And I've always heard this too. Don't be the smartest person in the room either.
Right.
Gather people around you that are smarter than you and start collaborating with them. And hopefully that helps. You know, it's very difficult at this time to do these things, but we do have an online digital community that you can reach out to and start creating. Start creating Zoom events, getting people together. If you don't have Zoom, get everybody on FaceTime, Google Hangouts. You can do these different things. And it is so amazing how we can do these things now with the technology that we have. Back in my day, you could call somebody, or you would have to go to somebody's house to gather and figure out what you were going to do. And so it's much easier nowadays to create something.
Yeah, I think to that point, it's interesting because in my household, so I was a professor of educational technology for 10 years. And one of the things about being in that position in teaching how to use technology in an effective way is I've tried to shelter my own children from being on technology too much. So, for example, none of my kids have a telephone. They don't have their own smartphones yet. The oldest is 14, so it's not that they're really old or anything, but they haven't had a lot of technology in their lives because I want them playing. This coronavirus has forced us indoors where my kids are having to learn technology, and I'm almost embarrassed that like they didn't know how to do chats. They didn't know how to get into a Hangout or a Zoom call, but it has opened up a new world for them where actually some of my children are more social now than they ever were before we were stuck inside. And it's crazy to see the opportunities. To your point of the 5 people being the average of the 5 people, technology has allowed me today to hang out with you, which is someone, you're speaking, you're doing things that I want to be doing in my life. I talked to a professional basketball player earlier this morning. This afternoon, I'm talking to an Olympian runner. And I have the opportunity now, because I took a little initiative like you recommended, to reach out virtually to find a community. I found my community through LinkedIn, and to start making connections. So that is absolutely possible right now, and the rewards are tremendous. I can't believe how many relationships I've created just in the last few months, and seeing the same thing for my kids. And they're taking that initiative. Today, my daughter's launching her ice cream truck business, or ice cream cart. She's carrying a cart behind her bike to the neighborhood. And she's so excited, and she prepped, and she's branded it, and she has like all these things, where she made her own t-shirt and hat. It's wonderful. But there are opportunities now if you're looking for them. So appreciate your message today, Rob, and very inspiring to see what you're doing and how you've continued to be an innovator during this challenging time, and looking for new ideas and creating new relationships. Do you have any last words of wisdom that you want to share with our audience?
Well, I just want to keep reiterating what you were just talking about. This is a perfect opportunity to find like-minded individuals. We connected on LinkedIn, and you can find people that are doing amazing things. And what works for me is reaching out and telling people how awesome they are. Like we didn't know each other, but I saw what you were doing, and I was like, this is a cool idea. I want to be a part of it. I reached out. I said, this is amazing. So many doors have been opened to me during this time because I just complimented somebody. It's crazy. Like I see what somebody is doing and I say, that is awesome, or cool, I want to be involved. That's all it took for me to be involved with what somebody was putting together. My friend Brady, he has what is called the Beat Bus. He is another DJ in Salt Lake City, and when I just complimented him on his amazing DJ setup, he reached out to me individually and he says, I have an idea for you, right? But just put positive vibes out there. So many people are haters. People are probably going to be watching this YouTube video and they're going to probably put a thumbs down, or they're going to do a negative comment. And there are so many times where I want to be negative or put that out there. And it's so easy to do that now and be anonymous. But do we have that negativity to somebody in person? I rarely, if never. So we just need positivity in this world. Compliment. Tell people they're doing amazing things, because for me that is open doors. Just be a positive force in the world. I'm not trying to put out negativity in the world. And we do have to address negativity, right? When things aren't as positive as they could be, we do have to get real. But if you can find the positive, put it out there, and doors will be open to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Well, if kids want to learn more about you, or if there's administrators or people who are thinking, we want to hire you, where should they go?
Yeah, so I have a couple different websites. You were talking about this earlier. My DJ Rob Utah website is more geared towards elementary school kids, assemblies and events that way. I do virtual dance parties for schools. I just did a whole lot of them last week. It was a lot of fun. You can also go to robferre.com, ROBFERRE.com, and you can find me there. And if you just like Instagram, let's hang out on Instagram at Rob Ferre. That's where I'm also on TikTok at RobFerre0. I guess I couldn't get my name, so that's me. But there's so many places where we can interact and learn more about each other. And for those of you who are like on LinkedIn, just find me on LinkedIn at Rob Ferre.